The sun was setting over the deserts of New Mexico, painting the sky with shades of red and orange. At the edge of the desert, surrounded by silence, stood a long line of giant radio dishes, part of the Very Large Array, one of the most powerful listening stations in the world. These machines didn't listen to music or news. They listened to the stars. Dr. Lena Morales sat inside the control room, sipping cold coffee and staring at a screen full of numbers and static waves. She had spent years trying to find something meaningful in the endless noise of space. Most days it was just static, radio waves from faraway stars bouncing around like whispers in a giant cave. But that evening, something strange happened. A pattern appeared. It was faint at first, like a heartbeat in the silence. Beep, pause, beep, beep, pause, beep. Lena froze. Her tired eyes sharpened. She ran the data again. The pattern didn't go away. It repeated exactly the same. Not random, not natural. It was too clean, too precise. This wasn't just noise. It was a message. The message. No one expected within minutes. Lena called her team. Scientists, engineers, and signal analysts rushed into the room. Everyone stared at the screen. The data scrolled in rhythm like Morse code. Someone ran a quick translation program. At first, the software failed, but after 2 hours of decoding and testing, a single line of text appeared on the screen. Extinction imminent. Assistance required. Biological support prioritized. The room went silent. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then someone asked in a shaky voice, "Is this real?" Lena nodded slowly. "It's real." The news spreads. The message was immediately sent to SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence in California, and then to NASA. Within hours, top scientists and space experts from around the world were discussing it in secret video calls. The U.S. government held emergency meetings. Some thought it might be a hoax. Others feared it was some kind of alien trap. But the facts were clear. The signal was real. It came from outside our solar system. It was at least 60 years old, maybe more, based on how long it took to reach Earth. And most importantly, it was a cry for help. When the President of the United States was briefed, she asked one simple question. What do they want? The answer wasn't easy. The message didn't mention weapons, energy, or technology. It only asked for biological support. That meant living creatures, plants, animals, maybe even people. That's when the debates began. A divided Earth as soon. As the news leaked to the public, thanks to a whistleblower who posted parts of the signal on social media, the world reacted fast. Some people were amazed. "We're not alone," they said. "This is the biggest moment in human history." Others were scared. "What if it's a trap?" they asked. "What if they come here instead?" In the U.S., the reaction was mixed. Late-night talk shows joked about aliens asking for Uber rides. Conspiracy theorists claimed the government had known for years. Scientists appeared on news channels, trying to explain what was going on. Some religious groups called it a sign from God. Others warned that helping aliens would lead to Earth's destruction. But one voice stood out, the voice of ordinary people. A growing number of Americans began asking a new question. Can we help them? Lena becomes the face of the message. As the first person to detect the signal, Dr. Lena Morales was suddenly famous. She was invited to speak on national TV, to testify, in Congress, even to meet the president. But Lena didn't care about fame. She only cared about one thing: the truth. "This is not science fiction," she told reporters. "This is a real message from real beings. Somewhere out there, a civilization is in trouble." They trusted the stars to carry their voice, and we were the ones who heard it. We have to listen. Her calm, clear words touched people. In a world full of noise, Lena spoke with heart. People listened. The second message. 2 weeks after the first message, a second one arrived. This time it was longer and clearer. It showed symbols and sound patterns. Experts decoded them into a short holographic video. A strange-looking planet, dry and dusty, with giant tower-like trees and a purple sky. In the background were soft cries and chirps from alien creatures. The video ended with a new translation. Our planet is failing. Life is disappearing. We cannot survive alone. We need your species, not machines. You have what we lost. People all over the U.S. watched the video on their phones and TVs. A child in Ohio asked, "Mom, are the aliens sad?" A veteran in Texas wrote on Facebook, "They're not trying to hurt us. They just need help." Artists began painting the alien world. Kids drew pictures of Earth and the alien planet holding hands. The story was no longer just science. It was emotional. It was human. Government in action behind the scenes. The U.S. government acted fast. NASA worked with private space companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin to build a deep space communication pod. Military officials prepared for the worst, but hoped for the best. A new team was formed, the Interplanetary Response Council, IRC, made up of scientists, astronauts, doctors, and biologists. Lina Morales was made its first director. Their goal? Figure out what kind of biological support Earth could offer and how to send it across the stars. A country begins to care in cities across the U.S. Ordinary people began to feel connected to something bigger. Schools held Alien Aid Awareness Days. Libraries organized space nights. Churches, mosques, and synagogues prayed for both Earth and the unknown planet. Even in small towns, people talked about it. In a diner in Kansas, a farmer said, "Maybe this is what we needed, a reason to come together." Veterans volunteered for testing missions. High schoolers sent letters to NASA. A group of nurses in Chicago made a care package with seeds, soil samples, and notes that said, "From Earth, with love." The big question. As the IRC studied the second message more closely, one question kept coming back. Why ask for animals instead of help with machines? Lina had a theory. Maybe their world had machines. Maybe they became too dependent on them. And now they need life again. Real life. Fur, paws, instincts, things you can't program. That's when someone jokingly said, "What if they want dogs?" Everyone laughed, at first. Then the room went quiet. Dogs, a new direction. The team started running simulations. They studied thousands of animal species, insects, reptiles, birds. But over and over, one group stood out, canines. Dogs had evolved with humans. They adapted quickly. They were loyal, social, protective, and emotionally intelligent. Dogs had helped humans through wars, disasters, loneliness, and recovery. Could they now help an alien world? The idea sounded crazy, but it was backed by science, and more importantly, it was backed by the heart. The beginning of a legend. In a quiet lab in Virginia, a golden retriever named Buddy was fitted with a small sensor vest. He wagged his tail, happy just to be with people. Scientists smiled. If anyone could bring hope to another world, maybe it wasn't a rocket or a robot, maybe it was a dog. Somewhere in the galaxy, a cry for help had been heard, and Earth was getting ready to answer, with fur. It had been a month since the world received the second alien message. The strange video of a purple-skied planet with dry land and soft animal cries still played on news channels and social media. People hadn't stopped talking about it. The Interplanetary Response Council, IRC, led by Dr. Lina Morales, was now the center of the world's attention. Everyone wanted to know, how would Earth help? The message had been clear: biological support prioritized. That meant the aliens didn't need spaceships or technology. They needed living things. But which ones? Searching Earth's DNA inside. A lab near Washington, D.C., a supercomputer called Gaia was running nonstop. Its job was to compare the alien request with Earth species, millions of types of animals, plants, bacteria, and fungi. The IRC wanted to find the best life forms to send into space. They called this part of the project the match. Dr. Samir Patel, a gentle biologist with a love for wildlife, led the Gaia team. He stared at the screens filled with charts, genes, and endless data. "We're not just sending life," he said one day. "We're sending hope, and hope must survive." The IRC had one big problem. Most life on Earth was fragile. Many animals needed very specific environments: warm temperatures, fresh water, clean air. But the alien planet, named Zira, seemed harsh, dry, and unfamiliar. Whatever Earth sent had to be strong. The survivors list. After weeks of testing, Gaia gave them a short list. These were Earth species that had strong immune systems, flexible diets, and high adaptability. The top survivors were cockroaches, tough but not helpful emotionally. Moss and lichen could grow almost anywhere. Rats, clever but carried diseases. Crows, smart birds that adapted to cities and forests. Dogs, loyal, emotional, social, and deeply connected to humans. The team paused at that last one. "Dogs?" someone asked. "They're not just tough, but intelligent, trainable, and deeply bonded with us." Samir leaned back in his chair. "Think about it. They've survived with humans through ice ages, famines, wars. They protect, comfort, and learn. They don't just survive, they connect." Lena Morales stared at the word dog glowing on the screen. She remembered the joke someone had made weeks ago. Now it didn't seem like a joke. It felt like destiny. The Fur Forward program begins once the idea was approved. The U.S. government launched a secret initiative called Fur Forward. The public didn't know all the details yet, but dog trainers, shelter workers, and animal scientists across the country were contacted and invited to help. They didn't tell people the dogs were going into space yet. They just said the dogs were needed for a special national mission. Across America, selected dogs were brought to new training centers. These weren't military dogs. They were from shelters, rescue homes, and service programs. Some were purebred. Most were not. Big, small, old, young, the only rule was they had to be emotionally strong. One dog stood out early on. Meet Ranger. Ranger was a mixed-breed dog rescued from a flood in Kentucky. He had a scar on one ear and a brown patch around one eye. The rescue team said he had once belonged to a homeless veteran who passed away during the storm. Ranger had stayed by his side until the very end. When trainers met him, they were amazed. Ranger was calm, loyal, and incredibly smart. He learned new commands in minutes, but more importantly, he seemed to understand people. "He's not just following orders," a trainer said. "He feels things." Ranger became the unofficial face of Fur Forward. Lena even made him her companion during lab meetings. Wherever she went, Ranger followed quietly like a soldier made of heart and fur, training for the stars. The dogs were trained not just to obey commands, but to respond to stress, strange environments, and robotic communication tools. NASA designed special suits and habitats to help dogs survive in artificial space conditions. The suits were small, lightweight, and had sensors to check the dog's health. The dogs were also tested with alien-simulated environments: purple, lights, high-pitched sounds, low-gravity rooms. It wasn't easy. Some dogs got scared, some refused to train, but many adjusted faster than anyone expected. Dr. Patel laughed during a meeting and said, "They're better astronauts than most humans." But training wasn't just about science. Volunteers were brought in to play, hug, and talk to the dogs. They wanted to make sure the animals kept their loving nature, even in a high-tech world. One girl, age 9, read bedtime stories to a Labrador, named Snowball every night. "They need love before they leave," she told her mom. The national debate begins. Then came the press leak. A reporter from New York found out that dogs were being trained for an interstellar mission. The story exploded across the internet. U.S. sending dogs into space to save dying alien world. Some people were thrilled. Others were furious. Animal rights groups protested, calling the mission unfair. "Dogs are not astronauts," they shouted. "They're companions." But supporters argued back. If aliens need help, and dogs can give it, shouldn't we let them? On social media, the hashtag #DogsForZara trended for days. Celebrities joined in. One country singer released a song called "He Ain't Just My Dog, He's a Hero Now." Kids made posters and cards saying things like, "Good luck, Space Pup," and "Fetch a Future." Lena Morales and her team went public to calm the chaos. "These dogs will not be forced," she explained on national TV. "They are not being sacrificed, they are being honored. They will be safe, monitored, and respected. They are ambassadors of Earth." People started to understand. A new type of hero. The U.S. had always celebrated heroes, soldiers, doctors, astronauts. Now it was celebrating dogs. Ranger appeared on magazine covers. A cartoon series was made about the Barkanauts. Schools held assemblies where kids dressed up as dogs in spacesuits. The idea was no longer strange. It was beautiful. "We're not sending just animals," Lena told a crowd at a science expo. "We're sending what makes us human: loyalty, love, and bravery. More than just dogs." While dogs became the heart of the mission, the IRC also included seeds from American crops like corn, wheat, and apples, microbes that helped clean water and soil, insects like bees and butterflies to help build ecosystems. The plan was not to take over the alien world, but to heal it. Like a gardener planting life in broken ground, but it was the dogs who would make the first connection. Scientists believed the aliens would respond best to emotional creatures. They didn't want to send humans yet, too risky. But dogs? Dogs could love without words. They could build trust with eyes, body language, and gentle presence. The plan was simple. Send the dogs in a life-supported pod. Land safely on Zera. Release them in protected zones. Watch how the aliens respond. If the dogs were accepted, humans could one day follow. Hope in a quiet moment, Lena stood on the training field watching Ranger play with two puppies. She felt both pride and sadness. These dogs didn't know what awaited them. But maybe that was the beauty of it. "They trust us," she whispered. "And now it's our turn to trust them." The galaxy had called for help, and Earth, against all odds, was answering, not with weapons, not with machines, but with something soft, kind, and full of heart, with fur. The news was now public. The United States was training dogs to send into space, to help a dying alien planet called Zera. What started as a quiet science project had become a global conversation. People everywhere were talking, arguing, hoping, and worrying. The world was no longer just reacting to a message from space. Now it was deciding what it meant to be human. The country splits. After the announcement, America was buzzing. On the streets, in schools, at dinner tables, people were having one big question: should we send dogs into space? Some people were proud. They said, "This is what makes us great. We help others, even across the stars." Others were angry. They shouted, "Dogs are family, we can't send them away forever." TV talk shows had fiery debates. Animal rights groups protested outside training centers. Social media was a war zone of opinions. People cried, cheered, and argued. The president made a speech from the White House garden. "We are not forcing our animals into danger," she said. "We are choosing love over fear. And the brave souls we send, our dogs, will carry the best of Earth to a place that needs it." But still, many hearts remained torn. The People Speak surveys were held across the country. The results were close. 48% supported the mission, 42% were against it, 10% were unsure. New voices joined the conversation. Veterans said, "Dogs saved our lives in war. If they can save another world, let them." Scientists said, "This is history. This is the moment Earth becomes part of the galaxy." Parents asked, "What if the dogs get hurt? What if they never come back?" One woman in Florida said on live TV, "I lost my dog last year. He was my best friend. I couldn't send him away. But if it meant saving a planet full of life, maybe I would." The country was emotionally pulled in two directions: love for animals and love for life itself. The voices of the young while adults argued. Kids had a different view. Across the country, children wrote letters to the IRC. Many drew pictures of space dogs hugging alien creatures or planting trees on Zera. Some letters said, Dear Ranger, please be safe. I hope they give you treats on Zera. I want to go too, but I'm only 6, so I send my puppy instead. Dogs have big hearts. Maybe that's what the aliens need most. Teachers read the letters aloud in class. Some schools even held space-themed art shows and science fairs. A group of 4th graders in Oregon made a giant banner that read, "Pause across planets." It went viral. The religious response faith leaders also joined the debate. Churches, mosques, temples, and synagogues talked about the mission in their weekly sermons. One pastor in Georgia said, "God gave us animals not just to serve us, but to remind us of loyalty, peace, and love. If they can carry that to another world, then maybe they are doing His work." A rabbi in New York said, "This isn't just science, it's compassion in action." Still, some religious groups were unsure. One minister warned, "We must not play God. Helping aliens is not our mission on Earth." But overall, faith leaders encourage prayer for the dogs, for the aliens, and for the future. Inside the IRC, the pressure builds. Meanwhile, inside the Interplanetary Response Council, IRC, the pressure was growing. Dr. Lena Morales and her team faced daily questions from the media, government, and public. Every move they made was watched. Some members wanted to delay the launch. Others feared that public pressure might shut the mission down. But Lena stayed calm. "We cannot let fear decide for us," she said in a press briefing. "This is not just about dogs. It's about who we are. Are we the kind of world that turns away when someone cries for help?" The team pushed forward. A visit from Congress one day, a group of U.S. senators visited the training center. They wanted to see the mission up close before deciding whether to approve final launch funding. Lena welcomed them personally. "You won't be watching a science project," she told them. "You'll be meeting heroes." The senators watched as dogs ran through obstacle courses, responded to voice commands, and gently interacted with alien-like robots. One Labrador even pressed a button that made a hologram of the planet Zera appear. Then, they met Ranger. He walked up to each senator, wagging his tail gently. He sat politely, made eye contact, and gave a soft bark. The oldest senator, a dog lover from Montana, knelt down and petted him. "He knows something we don't," he whispered. By the end of the visit, most of them were convinced. 2 days later, Congress approved the final launch budget with a narrow vote. A country says goodbye. With the launch date now set, the mood in the country shifted. People began preparing to say goodbye, not with anger, but with pride. Across the U.S., people held local farewell events for the space dogs. Parks, shelters, and schools held Hero Dog Days. Kids wrote more letters. Musicians wrote songs. One famous actor offered to narrate a documentary about the mission. Even some of the earlier protesters changed their minds. One woman who had protested with signs now stood with tears in her eyes at a candlelight ceremony. "I still don't want them to go," she said, "but I understand why they must." The final message, just 1 week before the launch, Earth received one more signal from Zera. This message was different. It was a sound, not just a translation. A soft, slow hum, like a lullaby. Along with it came a simple phrase translated into Earth's languages: "Bring the heartbeat." No one knew exactly what it meant, but many believed it referred to the dogs, the creatures that carried Earth's heart. Lena was moved to tears. "They don't just want help," she said. "They want something to remind them what life feels like." The ceremony. The night before the launch, a special farewell ceremony was held in Washington, D.C. The president gave a speech from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. "These animals are not just leaving Earth," she said. "They are carrying the message of humanity, that we care, that we try, and that we don't turn away from those in need." Ranger stood beside Lena, wearing his small silver vest with the Earth and Zera emblems stitched into it. A child from California sang the national anthem, and across the country, millions of people stood quietly, watching, listening, and feeling something they hadn't felt in a long time. Unity. The night before the stars later that night, Lena sat alone in the training center. Ranger rested beside her, his head on her knee. She thought about everything, the signals, the debates, the fears, the hope. So much had changed in just a few months. The galaxy had reached out, and Earth had answered, not with weapons or power, but with something softer, kinder, something covered in fur. She stroked Ranger's head gently. "They don't know what love feels like," she whispered. "Go teach them." The day had finally arrived. The morning sky over Cape Canaveral was clear and bright, as if the universe itself had aligned to witness a historic event. It was the day humanity was sending its first representatives into the stars, not astronauts or robots, but dogs. These dogs weren't just traveling for exploration, they were heading to a dying world, an alien planet named Zera, to offer the gift of life and loyalty. The countdown begins. Inside the launch center, the atmosphere was filled with tension, excitement, and quiet nerves. Engineers, scientists, and military personnel rushed around, making sure everything was perfect. But at the heart of it all was one small, furry dog. Ranger. Ranger, the mixed-breed hero, stood quietly in his specially designed spacesuit. The suit was lightweight and sleek, made of a material that protected him from the harsh conditions of space while allowing him to move freely. His helmet was clear, designed to show his expressive eyes. He looked up at Lena Morales, his ears twitching, slightly as if sensing the gravity of the moment. "Ready, boy?" Lena asked, crouching down and gently petting his head. "You've got this, just be yourself." Ranger wagged his tail and nudged her hand with his nose as if to say, "I'm ready." Around them, the team watched in silence. Some were on the verge of tears. Others were holding their breath. They had spent months preparing, training, and testing, but now it was time for the mission to begin. The spaceport farewell. Before the launch, the spaceport was filled with crowds. People had traveled from all over the country to witness this moment. Some were supporters, others were still uncertain. But everyone knew they were about to see something that had never happened before. The media captured every moment. The countdown, the dogs being loaded into their pods, and the farewell from the people who loved them. A small group of children stood near the stage, waving tiny American flags and holding signs that read, "Good luck, Space Pups." Many had written personal messages to Ranger and the other dogs, hoping their words would reach them wherever they went. Lena was standing beside the stage when she saw the crowd. There were no longer any questions. The doubts had faded. The nation was behind them, united by the power of these loyal creatures. As the clock ticked down to 0, the crowds grew quiet, almost as if they were holding their breath. At that moment, a voice over the loudspeakers announced, "T-minus 5 minutes." Lena stepped up to the podium and addressed the crowd. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were full of emotion. "Today, we send more than just dogs into space," she said, her voice echoing across the field. "We send the heart of humanity. The world has watched us, questioned us, and debated us. But today, we show the universe who we really are: kind, compassionate, and brave. We believe that love and loyalty are worth fighting for, no matter how far the journey." She paused for a moment, looking at Ranger, who was sitting calmly at her feet. "These dogs are not just our companions. They are our best friends. And now, they carry the best of us to a new world. A world that is calling for help." The final moments. The countdown continued. It was almost time. Lena reached down and gave Ranger one last hug. "You've made all of us so proud," she whispered in his ear. "Go, boy. Bring the heartbeat of Earth to Zera." Ranger responded with a gentle bark, then turned and trotted toward the waiting shuttle. He was calm, as if he understood the magnitude of the mission. He climbed into the transport capsule with the other dogs, each of them equipped with their own spacesuits, monitoring systems, and small survival kits. The doors closed and the mission was ready to begin. The team held their breath. Outside, the countdown clock read T-1 minute. The launch pad came to life with lights and the final checks were made. The engineers, the astronauts, and the scientists had all done their part. Now it was up to the dogs and the mission itself. The journey begins. With a loud roar, the rocket engines ignited. The entire launch pad seemed to tremble as the spacecraft lifted off the ground. The force of the launch pressed Lena and the rest of the team back against their seats, but there was no time for fear. This was it. Ranger's capsule was safely tucked inside the spacecraft, which now soared through the atmosphere at an incredible speed. Inside, the dogs were calm, their vital signs being monitored by the team back at mission control. The pod was designed to simulate the comforts of home as much as possible, with soft bedding, small toys, and calming music. For the first few minutes, everything went smoothly. The dogs adjusted to the gentle weightlessness of space, their bodies becoming used to the strange sensation of floating. But as the spacecraft moved farther from Earth, a new challenge emerged: the deep silence of space. The once bustling sounds of Earth's atmosphere were replaced by a quiet, eerie stillness. The dogs began to adjust, but even they could feel it. The absence of sound, the lack of the familiar air pressure. Ranger curled up in his small corner, his eyes wide but his breathing steady. He had been trained for this. He trusted the team. He trusted Lena. The unexpected visitor. But there was something unexpected happening. The farther they traveled, the more the dogs began to act strangely. At first, the crew thought it was just the discomfort of space travel. But as time went on, the dogs seemed to grow restless. Lena and the team could only watch as the dogs began to exhibit behaviors they had never shown during training. Some began barking softly. Others moved around more than usual as if trying to get someone's attention. And then, just as they reached the edge of Earth's atmosphere, something happened. A faint sound appeared, almost like a whisper in the radio waves. The mission team couldn't understand it at first, but then they realized it was an alien signal. The message was faint, almost lost in the vast emptiness of space, but the team recognized the rhythm. It was the same pattern they had received before, the heartbeat of Zera. It was a call, a response from the alien planet. The dogs weren't just traveling to Zera. They were now part of something much larger. They were the bridge between Earth and this distant world. Lena couldn't believe it. The dogs had only just left Earth, yet the alien planet had already reached out. The connection had begun. The dogs respond as the spacecraft continued its journey. The dogs seemed to react to the signal. Ranger stood up, ears perked, and began walking to the window of the capsule. He placed his paws gently on the transparent surface, looking out into the vastness of space. His eyes seemed focused, almost as if he was trying to understand the signal. The other dogs responded similarly. They sat by the window, their eyes fixed on the stars. The hum of the alien message grew stronger, clearer, and the dogs began to bark softly as though trying to communicate back. At mission control, the team watched in awe. The connection was real. The dogs were more than just passengers on this mission. They were becoming part of the communication between two worlds. A new beginning. As the spacecraft neared Zera, the team knew that the hardest part of the mission was yet to come. Landing on the alien planet would be a challenge. The surface of Zera was unknown, its atmosphere untested by human or canine life. But the team also knew one thing: Ranger and the other dogs were not alone. The universe had already started to listen. The dogs had answered the call, and now they would carry the message of Earth to a new world, a world in desperate need of help, but also one full of possibility and hope. The launch was just the beginning. The journey through space had been long, and the silence had been broken by only the hum of the spacecraft's engines and the occasional soft bark from one of the dogs. The mission was far from over, but one thing had become clear. The bond between these dogs and the people of Earth was undeniable, and now it was time to see if that bond could make a difference on Zera, the dying alien planet that awaited their help. The spacecraft had finally entered the orbit of Zera. The planet looked strange. It was a swirling mix of greens and blues, but it had a sickly tint to it, as if the life on it had started to fade away. It was clear that Zara wasn't the bright and thriving world it had once been, but now the dogs were the key to bringing it back to life. A new world awaits inside the spacecraft. Lena Morales and her team gathered around the control console. The dogs were ready, but there were still many unknowns. They had trained for this moment, but nothing could prepare them for what would come next. Zara's atmosphere was strange, different from anything Earth had experienced, and its surface was covered with vast deserts, mountains, and strange, barren landscapes. "This is it," Lena said, glancing at her team. "We've done everything we can. Now it's time to make history." The team nodded in agreement. There was no turning back now. The spacecraft began its descent toward the surface of Zara. Outside the ship, the swirling storm clouds of the alien world could be seen, as if the planet itself was waiting, holding its breath, to see if Earth's message of compassion would be enough to save it. The landing, the spacecraft shook as it passed through Zara's atmosphere. It felt like a slow, almost graceful fall. The dogs in their pods seemed to sense the change in pressure, but they remained calm, their vital signs steady as the team watched from the control room. Ranger, the most experienced of the dogs, had been chosen to be the first to step out onto the alien planet. Lena knew he was ready. His journey had only just begun, but it would define the future of this mission, and the future of Zara. The craft touched down with a soft thud, and the ground beneath it felt different. It wasn't the familiar softness of Earth's soil, but something harder, more alien. The crew held their breath as the final landing sequence was completed. A soft ping on the control panel signaled that it was safe to open the doors. The doors of the spacecraft slowly slid open, and a gust of dry wind rushed in, carrying with it the scent of an unfamiliar world. The dogs stirred inside their pods, but none of them seemed frightened. They were ready. Their paws would touch Zara's soil, and they would begin their mission of love, loyalty, and hope. Ranger was the first to step out of the craft. Lena opened his pod and gently helped him out. He looked around, his fur ruffling slightly in the strange wind. The ground was a dull gray, covered in dust, but there were strange plants in the distance, plants that seemed to be wilting but still alive. Ranger's nose twitched. He was already taking in his surroundings, as if he could sense the planet's needs. "Go, boy," Lena whispered, watching him carefully. "It's time." Exploring Zara, Ranger stepped forward cautiously at first, sniffing the air. Then his tail wagged, and he trotted ahead, eager to explore. As he moved across the alien landscape, his eyes darted from side to side. The world around him was a mixture of strange, withered plants and twisted rock formations. Yet, it wasn't completely lifeless. There was something here, something that still had a heartbeat even if it was faint. The other dogs followed Ranger, each one stepping out of their pods and walking into the unknown. They moved in small groups, their bodies scanning their surroundings. The alien planet was not welcoming in the way Earth was, but they had a job to do. Each dog wore a small device that sent out signals to the team back on Earth, letting them track their movements and health. The dogs, led by Ranger, began to explore the area surrounding the spacecraft. They were in a large open valley, surrounded by towering rock formations. The air was thin, but the dogs seemed to be adjusting. It was clear that they were drawn to something deep within the planet that needed their help. Lena watched through the spacecraft's observation window, her heart in her throat. She knew that this was just the beginning. They needed to find the source of Zara's fading life, and the dogs were the first to begin the search. Ranger was their leader. He was Earth's ambassador to this new world, and he would lead the charge. The first discovery, after hours of exploration, the dogs came upon a strange structure, half buried in the dust of Zara's surface. It looked like an ancient ruin covered in moss and vines, but these plants weren't the green, healthy kind from Earth. They were gray, their leaves twisted, and their stems bent in odd angles. Ranger approached the structure first, his paws kicking up small clouds of dust as he moved closer, He sniffed the air and circled the ruin, his tail wagging slightly. He seemed to be communicating with the planet itself, his instincts guiding him to this spot. Lena and her team watched as the dogs moved closer to the structure, their communication devices picking up a strange signal, a faint pulse, almost like a heartbeat. The dogs were reacting to it. Their movements were synchronized, as if they were following a hidden rhythm, a pulse that resonated deep within the planet. Ranger stopped in front of what appeared to be a doorway, half buried in the dust. He sniffed the entrance and barked. The team back at Mission Control, monitoring everything, saw his reaction. "What is it, Ranger?" Lena whispered to herself. Ranger looked back at her and barked again, his eyes filled with determination. It was as if he knew something the team didn't. Lena made a quick decision. "Prepare the excavation tools," she ordered. "We're going to find out what's inside." The awakening. The team began working quickly, digging around the doorway to uncover the ancient structure. As the dust settled and the entrance became clear, a soft light began to shine from within. It wasn't bright, but it had a strange glow, almost like the planet itself was awakening. As the team opened the door, a deep rumble echoed through the ground. It felt like the planet was breathing, alive once more. Inside the structure, they discovered something amazing, a glowing crystal pulsating with energy. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its light seemed to flicker in time with the heartbeat that Ranger had sensed earlier. Ranger moved toward the crystal, his instincts leading him. He stood in front of it, his paws touching the ground, and for a moment there was stillness. The crystal seemed to respond to him, its light growing brighter. The team watched in awe. It was as if the crystal recognized Ranger, as if it knew he was the key to restoring Zara's life. The pulse of energy grew stronger, and the once dying planet began to show signs of recovery. The plants that had wilted began to stir, and the sky above began to clear, revealing patches of blue. A new hope for Zara as the days passed. The dogs continued to work with the crystal. Their bond with the planet seemed to grow stronger. Ranger and the other dogs, each with their own special abilities, played a crucial role in restoring Zara's life force. They were not just animals. They were partners in saving a world on the brink of destruction. Lena stood on the edge of the valley, watching the transformation unfold. The once barren land was now slowly turning into something beautiful. Greenery began to spread and the air became fresher. Zara was coming back to life. "Thank you," Lena whispered, looking at Ranger. "You did it. You brought Zara back." The final message as the mission came to a close. The team sent a final message to Earth. The mission had been a success. Zara had been saved, thanks to the bravery and loyalty of the dogs. The alien world was healing and humanity had made a powerful connection across the stars. Ranger, standing tall at the heart of the transformed land, looked back at Lena. His tail wagged, and for a moment, it seemed like he was smiling. The message from Zara was simple, but it spoke volumes. "The heartbeat of Earth has saved us, thank you."